Tay-K, Tamor McIntyre. Tay-K exploded into infamy as the teenage Texas rapper behind The Race, a single he recorded while on the run from house arrest. He had successfully turned a local criminal case into a viral cultural moment. The notoriety eclipsed the facts. Prosecutors said he'd already been part of a 2016 home invasion robbery that left 21-year-old Ethan Walker dead, leading to a 55-year sentence in 2019. In a separate case that prosecutors had pursued for years, a Bexar County jury in 2025 found him guilty of murdering 23-year-old photographer Mark Anthony Saldivar in 2017, a killing that happened after Tay-K allegedly tried to rob the victim while evading authorities. The jury opted for murder rather than capital murder, avoiding an automatic life without parole term. But the new conviction stacked enormous additional time on top of his first sentence, and per the state's theory, centered on robbery and flight, a pattern of violent acts while attempting to finance a lifestyle and elude capture, a stark counterpoint to the defiant persona in The Race. Culturally, Tay-K's case is the textbook example of rap virality colliding with courtroom reality. The music immortalized the fugitive myth, but the juries dealt in evidence, not lore. He now faces decades behind bars across 2 murder judgments. C-Murder, Corey Miller. A New Orleans icon and No Limit record star, C-Murder embodied the gritty South in the early 2000s. Then his career collided with a homicide inside Platinum Club in Harvey, Louisiana. The victim wasn't exactly an op. He was a fan who got caught in the crossfire of an anger-fueled rampage. The 16-year-old Steve Thomas was shot and killed in 2002 after a slight altercation. Miller was convicted of second-degree murder, 2009, and given life at Angola. This case was tied to ego, status, and a volatile after-hours fight. Defense attorneys later spotlighted inconsistent witnesses and pressure tactics. In 2018, 2 key witnesses recanted, claiming coercion, fueling a sustained clemency and innocence campaign. Yet the conviction still stands as of now. Max B, Charlie Max B Wingate. Harlem's Max B, the self-proclaimed Wave, was as known for a breezy melodic style as for a 2006 botched robbery in New Jersey that turned deadly. Prosecutors said a plot to rob a hotel room spiraled. An associate shot and killed David Taylor, and in 2009, Max B was convicted. Initially 75 years. In 2016, a plea deal reduced the conviction to aggravated manslaughter, aligning punishment with his alleged role. After multiple sentence adjustments, he's now cleared for release in November 2025, per the state and his own updates. It is a classic tale of greed and poor judgment, organizing a stick-up that escalated into homicide. In culture, Max B's story tracks as art and aura versus accountability, a pioneer of melodic street rap whose legal saga paused a movement many say influenced a generation. His impending release gives this segment a turning page. Actions had consequences, time was served, and the wave finally returned to shore. RondoNumbaNine, Clint Massey. Part of the OTF/600 crew, RondoNumbaNine was one of the youngest names in Chicago drill when he became infamous in the courts. In February 2014, prosecutors said Rondo and associate Cotty ambushed 28-year-old driver Javan Boyd, who was sitting in his car waiting for a customer. The killers allegedly mistook Boyd for a rival or simply treated him as a stand-in enemy. Surveillance footage, DNA, and witness testimony tied the duo to the shooting. At trial in 2016, Rondo was convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to 39 years in prison. Prosecutors described the motive as retaliation and maintaining reputation within ongoing gang feuds. The tragedy is that Boyd wasn't a rival gang member at all. He was a livery driver doing his job, a father and provider caught in the crossfire of drill warfare. This unfortunate incident was born from misplaced aggression and the reckless logic of clout in drill culture, kill to boost fear and status. It just goes to show the reality of things. Drill beefs don't just cost rappers their freedom, they claim innocent lives, and Boyd's name remains a reminder of how bystanders can pay the price. Kid Creole, Nathaniel Glover. As a member of Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five, Kid Creole helped pioneer hip-hop in the late 1970s. But in 2017, decades after his glory days, he was arrested for stabbing a homeless man, John Jolly, to death in Midtown Manhattan. Surveillance cameras caught Glover confronting Jolly late at night. Prosecutors argued he reacted violently because he believed Jolly had made a sexual advance toward him. In 2022, a jury convicted him of first-degree manslaughter, and he was sentenced to 16 years in prison. Prosecutors argued they said it was an unjustified overreaction rooted in fear and anger. The defense claimed Glover panicked and struck in self-defense, but the jury rejected that framing. For hip-hop culture, the case was tragic. One of rap's original legends, now remembered more for a late-life homicide than his contributions to music. The conclusion is stark. While younger rappers in this list are often tied to gang feuds and retaliation, Kid Creole's downfall stemmed from a street corner misunderstanding that spiraled into lethal violence. His story underscores how violence and rap have intersected across generations, from pioneers to drill stars. Gucci Mane, Radrick Davis. Charges dropped. In May 2005, Atlanta rapper Gucci Mane turned himself in after being accused of murdering Henry Lee Clark III, better known as Pookie Lock, an affiliate of rival rapper Jeezy. The killing happened during a confrontation in Decatur, Georgia. According to Gucci, he was ambushed by men sent to rob and kill him. He opened fire in self-defense. Clark's body was later discovered near a middle school. Prosecutors initially charged Gucci with murder, but in 2006, the case was dropped due to insufficient evidence and the credibility of Gucci's self-defense claim. The incident became one of the most notorious rap beef episodes, cemented in cultural lore during Gucci and Jeezy's 2020 Versus battle, when Gucci mocked his role in Pookie Lock's death on stage. The conclusion: legally, Gucci walked free, but in rap memory, the shooting elevated his legend as someone who beat the case and survived a war with rivals. For viewers, this story shows how murder allegations can dissolve legally, yet remain etched in the mythology of hip-hop forever. YNW Melly, Jamel Demons. Florida's YNW Melly became a global name off Murder on My Mind, then faced the nightmare of being charged with the double murder of his friends and crewmates, YNW Juvie, Christopher Thomas Jr., and YNW Sack Chaser, Anthony Williams, in 2018. Prosecutors allege he staged a drive-by to cover an internal execution. The defense says the state's digital forensics and messages are misread. A 2023 trial ended in a mistrial, hung jury. Since then, a retrial has been repeatedly delayed amid evidentiary fights and a separate witness tampering charge. As of 2025, the double murder retrial timeline remains fluid and hotly litigated. The world has had a field day dissecting this case. For the state, it is internal beef and betrayal, plain and simple. For viewers, Melly is the quintessential "don't assume guilt from headlines" case. Massive attention, partial proceedings, and no final verdict yet. Bobby Shmurda, GS9. Not a murder conviction. Brooklyn's Bobby Shmurda was the face of GS9's meteoric rise and the cautionary fall. In 2014, NY authorities indicted GS9 members in a sweeping case that referenced shootings and one murder within the crew's activity. Shmurda himself ultimately pled to conspiracy and weapons charges in 2016 and received a 7-year sentence, crediting time served. Several affiliates drew colossal time on violent counts. Bobby was not convicted of murder, but his case shows how a rap crew's orbit can include homicides that prosecutors link back to the brand. He's since been released and is rebuilding a post-Rico life that still resonates in debates about policing rap. King Von, Davon Bennett. King Von, born in Chicago's Parkway Gardens, O Block, became one of drill's most vivid storytellers, known for tracks like Crazy Story. Signed to Lil Durk's Only the Family, OTF, he had just released his debut album when his life ended in Atlanta on November 6, 2020. Outside Monaco Hookah Lounge, a fistfight between Von's crew and Quando Rondo's entourage escalated to gunfire. Prosecutors identified Timothy "Lul Tim" Leaks as the shooter, but Georgia's self-defense statutes made conviction difficult. In 2024, the charges were dropped. Von wasn't convicted of killing anyone here. He was the victim, but his death sparked a ripple effect. Rumors of revenge circulated online, and months later, Quando Rondo's cousin, Lil Pab, was shot dead in Los Angeles, an attack prosecutors now say was orchestrated by Lil Durk. Von's death wasn't because of a diss track, but a chaotic clash between rival affiliations in an Atlanta night. The conclusion is that Von became the martyr of drill's deadliest era, his loss amplifying cycles of retaliation that still echo across both Atlanta and Chicago rap scenes. Lul Tim was arrested but later set free. He was quite proud of the fact that he smoked Davon. Lil Durk, Durk Banks, murder for hire. Lil Durk's name has been in police files for a decade, but his most significant legal battles are recent. In 2019, he and King Von were charged with attempted murder after a shooting outside Atlanta's Varsity Drive-In. That case dragged on until 2022, when prosecutors dropped it for lack of evidence. But in late 2024, federal prosecutors charged Durk with orchestrating a murder-for-hire plot that targeted Quando Rondo in Los Angeles. The hit allegedly killed Rondo's cousin, Pab Robinson, in August 2022. Prosecutors framed it as retaliation for King Von's killing, tying Durk to interstate communications and organized hitmen. Durk pleaded not guilty, and as of 2025, the case is pending with trial prep underway. If the state's theory holds, it is loyalty and vengeance for Von, who was both a signee and close friend. If the defense prevails, the story will be that prosecutors stretched coincidences into a conspiracy. For now, Durk's career hangs under the shadow of an open federal murder-for-hire case, making him one of rap's highest-profile defendants still awaiting a verdict. Vybz Kartel, Adidja Palmer. Jamaica's Vybz Kartel isn't just a rapper, he's a cultural force whose reach rivals the biggest American names. In 2011, he was arrested for the disappearance of Clive Lizard Williams, an associate allegedly killed in a dispute over missing guns. In 2014, he was convicted of murder, and for a decade, he recorded and released music from behind bars, cementing his legend. But the story didn't end there. In March 2024, the UK Privy Council quashed his conviction, ruling that juror misconduct made the trial unsafe. Jamaica's Court of Appeal reviewed the case and decided against a retrial, freeing Kartel after nearly 13 years. Prosecutors had believed he was a powerful figure, eliminating a subordinate who crossed him. Nothing new. But Kartel denied it from day one, claiming he was a political target because of his influence. The conclusion was truly remarkable. A high-profile murder conviction completely erased, leaving Kartel free to reclaim his career. For fans, it raises questions. Was he framed, or was he guilty but released on a technicality? Either way, his name proves how rap's biggest stars can stand trial for life and still walk out free, making him one of the most controversial figures in the genre's history. Snoop Dogg, Calvin Broadus Jr. In the mid-1990s, at the peak of Death Row Records' dominance, Snoop Dogg became the most famous rapper to ever stand trial for murder. The case revolved around the 1993 shooting death of Philip Woldemariam, a reputed gang member who had confronted Snoop and his bodyguard, McKinley Lee, in Los Angeles. Prosecutors charged both with murder and conspiracy, alleging they had tracked Woldemariam down after an earlier confrontation. The defense countered that Woldemariam was armed and posed a threat, and that Lee fired in self-defense as Snoop drove the Jeep. It was gang rivalry escalating into targeted violence. According to the defense, it was a survival reaction in an unpredictable neighborhood confrontation. The acquittal preserved Snoop's career and allowed him to step into mainstream superstardom. The trial was a media circus, blending rap's rising cultural power with the criminal courts. Prosecutors leaned heavily on gang overtones, while the defense emphasized the immediacy of the danger. After months of testimony, in February 1996, a jury acquitted Snoop of all major charges, finding the shooting justified. Drakeo the Ruler, Daryl Caldwell. Los Angeles rapper Drakeo the Ruler built a cult following off his eccentric flow and mythos around his crew, the Stink Team. In 2016, after a shooting that killed 24-year-old Davian Gregory at a party, prosecutors charged Drakeo with murder, conspiracy to murder, and multiple attempted murders. They cast him as the gang leader, orchestrating violence. His defense said it was a reach. Gregory's killers were never clearly identified, and Drakeo wasn't the shooter. In July 2019, a jury acquitted him of murder and conspiracy, though it convicted him on one firearm possession count. He regained his freedom, and for a moment, it seemed like vindication. But the story didn't end with court. In December 2021, while backstage at a festival in LA, Drakeo was fatally stabbed in a melee involving dozens of people. According to the state, it was just another case gang violence, the same old story in most parts of the African-American community. But his actual death is still debated. It could have been his Opps coming back to collect on what they were owed, maybe a simple security failure or a premeditated hit. Cassidy, Barry Reese. Philadelphia rapper Cassidy found himself entangled in a fatal shooting in April 2005 that left Desmond Hawkins dead and two others injured. Prosecutors initially charged him with murder, alleging he and his associates had orchestrated an ambush with firearms. His defense painted the picture of a chaotic crossfire in which intent and planning were murky at best. The trial spotlighted how quickly a rising star could slip into the justice system. By 2006, after plea negotiations and evidence reviews, Cassidy was convicted of involuntary manslaughter and aggravated assault. He received an 11 to 23-month sentence in county jail, with much of it credited as time served, plus probation. Apparently, it was retaliation due to an escalating street conflict. The defense argued Cassidy never intended to kill, but his presence and participation in the firefight made him criminally responsible. The case made headlines for showing that even without pulling the trigger, association and negligence in a deadly scenario can brand a rapper with a homicide conviction. The conclusion: Cassidy left jail free to continue recording, but the shadow of Hawkins' death follows every telling of his career. Boosie Badazz, Torrance Hatch, acquitted. In 2010, Baton Rouge prosecutors charged Boosie Badazz with first-degree murder in the death of 35-year-old Terry Boyd, who was shot inside his home. The state alleged Boosie had ordered a hit, with prosecutors trying to use his lyrics and reputation as circumstantial evidence. Facing the death penalty, Boosie sat in jail while the trial drew national headlines. In 2012, after weeks of testimony, a Louisiana jury acquitted him of murder, though he remained incarcerated on unrelated drug charges for several more years. The why, as the state framed it, was violent retaliation within Baton Rouge's bloody rap gang conflicts. The defense countered that the evidence was thin, largely circumstantial, and that the state had leaned too hard on lyrics instead of concrete facts. The outcome turned Boosie into a symbol, for some, proof that prosecutors overreach in using rap art against artists. For others, a case that showed just how close the streets and studios can align. Today, Boosie continues to record and commentate on rap, but the Boyd family still lives with an unsolved killing. In cultural memory, Boosie beat the murder, a tagline that defines his legacy as much as his music.